Hello again. One of the things we didn't cover last time as far as objects that you can create in JavaScript is arrays. So what is an array? Well, you have to look back kind of at a variable. And a variable is just a bucket. It can hold one thing and one thing only. You can put anything you want to in this bucket, but it can only hold one thing. So you put something in the bucket, and to put something else into it, you have to take out the first thing. So we have a variable, a bucket, one thing. An array is like a shopping cart. It can hold many things, whereas a bucket is quite useful. Sometimes you need a collection of things or a whole range of things to work with. So that's what arrays are for, just to hold a bunch of stuff. Very simple. If you have a shopping list, you could have several different variables to hold all the different items in your shopping list. But every time you add something to the list, you've got to create a new variable. An array is handy because it will hold any number of items, and they're all addressed through a single name. A single object is created called an array that can hold any number of things within that one container. Very, very handy. So to create an array, you can do this one of three ways, but you typically use these square brackets, the opening and closing square brackets, to define an array. For example, to create an array containing abbreviations for the 7 days of the week, you could write var, keyword var, the name days, an assignment of equal sign, and then within the square brackets, you just list the things in the array, the objects in the array, separated by commas. Since these are strings, the edges of strings are defined or delimited by quotes, single or double, as long as you open and close with the same thing. So we have a var days equals open and close bracket containing the days of the week separated by commas. Now, the brackets are very, very important. They tell JavaScript that it's dealing with an array, and you can create an empty array without any elements just by creating a variable, naming it, and putting some square brackets on the other side of an assignment statement, and don't put anything in it. It's just then a variable of type array. This is waiting for stuff to go in it. Now, when you're looking through other people's JavaScript programs or other JavaScript books, you may encounter another way to create an array that looks something like this. Keyword var, days, name of the array, equals new array, quote, open and close parentheses with the objects in the array separated by commas. Now, it's perfectly valid, but it's the method used in our textbook, which is called an array literal, is preferred by the pros because, hey, it takes less typing, less code, and it's considered more elegant. Nothing wrong with the new array. In fact, you can almost create any of the different types of objects by saying new array or new date or whatever object you'd like to create. You can store any mix of values in an array. In other words, just about any object that you already know. In other words, words, numbers, strings, Boolean values, dates, any value can go into an array. So you might have an array, the name of preferences, that lists a couple of numbers, string literal, and a Boolean. Or the variable authors, which is an array with several authors' names. Notice they're delimited by quotes, the strings are, and the values are separated by commas, the different objects in the array. Square brackets there, very, very important in denoting an array from other types of objects. So, just because it can hold more than one value, you can't just use its name alone to access the items it contains. You have to talk to a specific item through its index. In other words, the position, left or right, of each item in an array. And to access a particular item in an array, you use that item's index number. For example, remember our good friend days of the week? It's an array, and since in JavaScript arrays start with, or most objects start numerically counting from 0. The days with a position of 0, in other words, the first one, is Monday. So the result of the alert, open and close parentheses, containing days, position 0, is Monday, alert Monday. Arrays, like I said, are 0 index, meaning the first item in an array has an index value of 0. The second has an item of 1, etc., etc., etc. So it becomes a little bit tricky to do math, realizing that to us human beings, the first value is 1, as we talk about it, but for the machine, the first value is 0. So we can make a shopping cart, an array, but how do you get stuff in and take stuff out? I'm so glad you asked. We can get stuff in by just declaring them using the assignment statement and saying, hey, we've got a properties array. Let's put red 14 pixels and Arial in them as objects. We could define another instance of properties in another situation that's just got numbers in it. You could assign a value of bold to the third place, number 4 to us humans, to the one that has the index of 3 in, say, properties. So again, in the top example, red is in position 0, index of 0, 14 pixels is index 1, Arial is in index 2. Interesting. So you can also use an array's push command, which adds whatever you supply between the parentheses to the end of the array. So to push an object or a value of bold onto the end of an array properties, you use this syntax, this construction here. Explain it a little bit more in the next movie, but you're saying properties, which is the array, dot push, you're giving it a command, and you can tell it's a verb because it's got parentheses, and you're saying put bold at the end by push. These terms are just a little bit obtuse. For example, if you want to add something to the beginning of an array, you use the unshift command. Little bit strange, little bit obtuse, but to add it to the beginning of an array in position 0, you would use unshift. The push and the unshift commands, they also return a value. So if you're using them, you can say, use the result of the assignment as having a value. For example, this is a little weird, I know, but if you have a variable p, which is an array with 4 values, 0, 1, 2, 3, and you have a variable total items, the value of total items after you use the p, which is the array, the push command, and you're adding 4 and 5 to the array, would be 5, because there would be 5 items. Actually, there would be 6. Excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There would be 6. That's a little weird. We'll show you. We'll walk through that in an example in just a little bit. There are all these different commands that work with arrays, all these verbs. Remember, verbs are always in parentheses, and you can ask for any noun like array to have this verb of push or unshift, or even length. Length is interesting because it's more of a property and more of a noun than a verb. So if you want to know the length of an array, how many things are in it, the number of things in it, you'd say the array name dot length, and the result of that code is the length in the array. So to get things out, you pop them out. And a pop command removes the item from the end of the array, while shift removes one item from the beginning. At least you've got push and pop at the end and shift and unshift at the beginning, and you can kind of remember them in pairs like that. Half the time when you start doing this, you're going to look them up every time you use them. Don't worry about it. That's why you're making a cheat sheet with these, so you can look them up very easily. So pop removes the last item from the array, like push pushes it onto the end of an array. Shift removes the first item, just like unshift places something in the first item. So pop and shift return a value once they've completed their task of removing an item from an array. In fact, they return the value that they just removed. In other words, if you take something out of an array, whatever that value is, whatever that thing is, that's what those two verbs or will return. So, for instance, stick with it. It's a little confusing, I know. Arrays are a little confusing. You have a variable p, which is going to be an array, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Excuse me, 0, 1, 2, 3. It's 4 items. And you want to know the total items. After you push 4 and 5 onto it, this code will run and the value will be stored in total items is 6, because there are 6 items in the P array.